Alright my friends, and now we're back in business with a very wooden showdown between the Wood Elves who shall be led by DRYCHA and her unholy legion of Dryads. And today my friends, we face off against the Tomb Kings. We're going to be led by DJ Kotep atop his mighty DJ Booth. Certainly going to be dropping some unholy beats here on my poor Wood Elves, but we'll see if we can crack the code of getting through the box of Ushapti and spears and all sorts of scary stuff. Now, the front line here is going to be, I think, all Dryads. So in total, I do have 5 Dryads. I can't remember if I brought the ROR Dryad. I don't think I did. I was a little bit tight on money. But nonetheless, Dryads are very good against Tomb Kings because, of course, they can cut through skeletons, they can cut through skeleton spears. They do lose the Tomb Guard, but typically speaking in this matchup, I don't remember seeing too many Tomb Guard. And if they did go Tomb Guard, I do have a couple Wild Riders. Wild Riders do excellent damage against light armor, so I feel like they would be a very good tool at kind of punching through the elite Tomb Kings infantry. So Dryads are going to be the front line, and you might be wondering why DRYCHA here instead of using like Orion. Orion on paper, right? He's anti-large, he's armor-piercing, he's mobile, he can kill the Tomb King's constructs, Necropolis Knights, Ushapti Grapos, Sepulchral Stalkers. He can really get in there and do some serious work. But DRYCHA is just incredibly cheap, so she allows you to have a very wide punishing army and really allows you to also get triple Waywatcher without having a narrow force. But more importantly, why I really like DRYCHA here is because she does indeed have the Dryad Summon. So once you get to the front line, it's relatively tough for the Wood Elves to circumvent a spear wall like this, right? Of skeletons and Tomb Guard and things like this. It looks like he does actually have some Tomb Guard. So using the Malevolent Dryads to summon in the secondary line of the Tomb Kings is quite nice because then you can push onto the Ushapti Grapos, the Caskets, and force them to start running, which is really essential in this matchup. So aside from that, we do have triple Waywatcher. It's going to be 1, 2, 3. This is pretty much old school, like how Wood Elves would deal with it. My build has a couple new elements, of course, with DRYCHA and the Glade Riders with spears, which is really nice. You don't have to be using Wild Riders and elite units to get into the back line. You can be using the cheap chaff units to really force the Tomb Kings to have to deal with multiple threats. But triple Waywatcher is huge. They can sneak up on the Grapos because they have stock. They can pound down the Casket. They can focus down any elite monsters. They really do handle business for you. And on top of that, we do have 1 unit of Great Stag Knights, just in case there was like Tomb Scorpions, Necropolis Knights. I think they would probably actually lose their Necropolis Knights head-to-head. It's hard to say, but I wanted something as like a mass insurance. In case he didn't go with a build that was like this, I was expecting Ushapti Grapo and Caskets, but if he had done, you know, a complete 360 and rushed me, I needed something with mass, because DRYCHA, though she has nice summons and a pendulum, she's not going to be able to win against like, you know, a big monstrous character like Cetra on a Sphinx or even a Tomb King. So aside from that, we got double Wild Rider, and that's it. And now for Hadri's, he's got a front line of Skeleton Spears with some Tomb Guard mixed in. So Tomb Guard here and the Kepler Guard in the back. Triple Ushapti Grapo with a Casket, and he does also have a Net Caster, which is very, very good against Wood Elves, who are a highly mobile faction, and triple Skeleton Horseman Archers. So certainly a strong build, guys. Let's get this battle underway and see how it all unfolds while I have a sip of my glorious Earl Grey tea. That's the good stuff right there. Definitely quite solid. Wild Rider's going to be charging into the Skeleton Spearman, though getting blasted by the Eyes of the Desert on the approach. So he does force me back, and that's instantly like 500-600 gold worth of value. So that was a very painful engagement. But now is the revenge of the Sith here. As you can see, the Waywatchers are going to be getting in position, and the Ushapti Grapos here are getting hammered really badly from a single volley. Also on top of that, DRYCHA is able to summon the Malevolent Dryads, and even though Hadri's does have a very good response here, Kepler Guard charging into intercept, they will win that. It pulls them away from the back line. So now suddenly the only thing that the Tomb Kings really have to defend their back line are Skeleton Horsemen, which I can eventually drag down. So I was quite happy about that. So the frontline fight does rage on. I'm going to be sending my Great Stag Knights right up the pipe to go after these Eyes of the Desert while they are being focused by Waywatchers. So we do kind of a weave through there, and we are going to be getting a fat Christmas charge right here on these guys. And I definitely think the Great Stag Knights have one of the cooler charge animations in the game. So here they come, dropping those gifts all over the face of the Eyes of the Desert. On top of that, a pendulum attempt here in the middle was going after the Kepler Guard, but Hadri's did dodge that, and I ended up penduluming my penduluming. I don't even know how you'd say that, but using pendulum on my own Dryads there. But the Stag Knights do okay. I think he was braced for that, so his charge bonus does come into play here, and he also has a heroic character, so suddenly it's a little bit of a dicey situation. Waywatchers will probably also do a little bit of friendly fire. Now in the back line, we do have the Wild Riders killing the Skeleton Horsemen. We have the Glade Riders here doing the work of the gods, occupying 2 units of Skeleton Horsemen and also shutting down these Ushapti Grapo from firing. And now we have another unit of Glade Riders coming in the back, which will be shutting down the Ushapti for now. So definitely a very, very good harass coming in the back from those very, very cheap cavalry units, which I think is quite nice. In the front, Dryads performing as expected, beating Skeleton Warriors, beating Skeleton Spears, but only losing to the Tomb Guard here. Of course, Tomb Guard have really good combat stats and can definitely fight off Dryads. So I'm going to be forced back a little bit. My Waywatchers are being kind of danger close to my front line, which is a little bit scary. And here comes the Ushapti Summon. So the Ushapti Summon from Hadri's here, probably going to be used to try and fend off the threats to his back line. going after the Glade Riders and maybe shutting down some of the Wild Riders. But nonetheless, the Stag Knights were in a very pitched combat here, so I did decide to pull the Wild Riders in to help win this. And I figured we could also maybe get his Lightcaster. Granted, shutting down the ranged assets of his army is way more important than dealing with that Lich Priest. Because here you can see I'm taking some punishing damage, and the Ushabti are now going to be coming in for a rear charge. Things could certainly get very, very ugly. So if we take a big macro look at the battlefield, you can see the Kepra Guard are chasing down my Dryads, who look really funny from a distance, actually. But Dryads do have 43 speed against the 28 of Kepra Guard, so I can kite them, get their backs turned, even though that doesn't really matter because they're not shielded, and then shoot them in the back here with the Way Watchers, which is certainly a pretty, decent value target. But suddenly the game was looking a little bit scary. I was in the backfield, I was causing a lot of disruption, but Hadrius did a good job stabilizing here, so now suddenly he's got great bows here, he's got a casket, which is more or less fully operational, a fully armed and operational DRYCHA. So it's back online, right? So now I'm going to have to start dealing with this again, but thankfully, a little bit of a saving grace as to maybe why I still have a chance in this game is the front line is 1. So Dryads and DRYCHA are coming in, we have more Dryads here, and I do also have a couple very cheap Glade Riders rallying in the back. However, Hadrius, very quick on his response here, going to be charging in with the Skeleton Horseman Archers, and he is able to chase those guys off. So the Glade Riders are done for, although they did cause a little bit of a distraction. Way Watchers have gotten back in range, a couple of them, and now they are able to rip some fat shots here into Kotep as well as the Ushabti Greypo. The Great Stag Knights are coming in for Christmas round 2. It's second breakfast here. And the Wild Riders are also going to be trying to squeak in. But, though my cav is very damaged, Kepra Guard are being kited in the desert here by the Way Watchers. I'm sure the Wood Elves didn't expect to be kiting skeletons in the desert, but it is what it is. A timed pendulum trying to sync with his Skeleton Spearman. We do get a pretty good shot there, actually tearing down through the front, so that was definitely Value City right there. But Balance of Power is still pretty good here for the Tomb Kings, but now that the Dryads are in the back line, and he's going to have to start running with the Great Bows, even though he is ahead on the Balance of Power, or at least very, very even, the fact that he's going to have to run is going to be a big problem for him. And DRYCHA should be able to defeat Kotep pretty handily in combat. All my Way Watchers are more or less alive as well. We got 42 models here. These ones are a little bit damaged, but they should be able to finish off Kepra Guard, go back into stealth, and then creep up here on the battlefield and really cause some serious disruption. I do also have another Dryad summoned in the back pocket, so I knew that would be useful for maybe finishing off the Skeleton Spears. You hear DRYCHA, she's getting branch deep in these guys, and definitely doing some decent work here against Kotep, as the Way Watchers are more or less just scooting and shooting at this point. But Balance of Power is coming a little bit back towards the middle, maybe even a little bit in my favor here, as the Ushabti Greypo have been shut down. The Skeleton Horseman Archers are being forced to fight in combat here, and they are fighting some Wild Riders, and also Dryads do have good DPS against light armor, and Skeleton Horseman Archers only have 18 melee defense, so the 34, melee attack of the Dryads is going to massively outpower those guys. But the big thing, though, is the Way Watchers. They're all pretty ammunition happy, about 20 to 30% on these two units. Another Pendulum going down through the Skeletons from DRYCHA there. And here comes the Dryads with a rear charge as DJ Kotep starts to get slapped up by this angry tree lady. She's certainly doing some big old damage. And Kotep's probably going to be going down for the count. I don't think his DJ beats shall reign across the old world for much longer. And there is the Malevolent Dryad summon because there were Skeleton Spears there. So just to make sure the Spears couldn't get saturated combat on my good targets, summon the Dryads. Just like Vampire Counts use zombie summons to muck up halberds while they charge them with cavalry. Same kind of thing, basically. So Kotep is on death's bed here. The Dryads are grinding it out, though the Ushabti are decent against them. Ushabti do have 90 armor, and the Dryads do have very poor AP value, so against big armor targets, they typically do struggle very badly. But the big problem here for the Tomb Kings is the fact that all 3 Way Watchers are back in business, and they are going to be able to rip some fat volleys coming to the face here, and the Ushabti Greypos are going to be taken to Pound Town pretty badly by that. And that probably will be all she wrote for the Tomb Kings, as DRYCHA is going to be using her branches to beat down this Lich Priest here. And the Ushabti Greypo, the last bastion of actual power in this Tomb King's army, is going to be crumbling to the focus fire here of the Way Watchers, and down they go! GG, well played. This is definitely a Wood Elf build I've been playing around with here in the early access. I actually made a build for every single matchup with the Wood Elves. I've really been enjoying playing them. Their new kind of hybrid rush style, because before it was pretty much Prey of Anathrema and Way Watchers, but now that you have DRYCHA and the Sisters of Twilight and obviously Orion's synergy with many of the new rushing tools and Aerial, I really do enjoy the faction as a whole, because I really like rushing style of play, but I also like having a little bit of variance with my builds. And it's pretty cool to think that you could go with, for example, in this matchup, right? You could go Dryads, cut the Way Watchers, probably get a couple Zotes and maybe some more, Glade Riders. You could break the front line and swarm the flanks using a ton of cavalry units, which is really cool. There's different styles. You could bring Orion, he'd be good in this matchup. Sisters of Twilight, not so much. They'd probably get pounded by the Ushabti Greypo, but even still, having variables and options to kind of work with is so enriching, and I really do like the Wood Elf. So yeah, I might be putting out a guide of sorts, like a multiplayer build guide. I've come up with a build for every single matchup. But, you know, again, part of me likes to keep some of the builds to myself. So when I do play in tournaments, because I've actually had that happen to me before, where I go into tournaments or some sort of a multiplayer, you know, game, and somebody will be like, oh, I just looked at your most recent video and basically counterplayed your build. And that really, like, I like playing in tournaments too. So part of me like wants to keep it. But, you know, again, I have a couple builds for the Tomb Kings. I'll show you the other one more or less. But this has definitely been one that I've had good success with. And I'll show you the other one. Well played to Hadries there. It was quite a fun match. So we'll go to custom battles. Let's go find some hardwood. Orion is still a monster in this matchup. He's just like an unholy terror. So you can go with like literally an Orion rush, which is very, very strong. But I think rushing is the best against Tomb Kings, because if you don't rush, the caskets and the great bows are really just going to punish you pretty badly. So you can get some wild riders, get a couple glade riders here. And the unfortunate part is Zotes can't vanguard. So you have to march through the storm. But just this build I'm showing you right now, it's more of a smaller map build. If you're on a big map, I would recommend the Waywatcher Vanguard I just showed you. But if you're on a small map, something like this could work. Get a Branch Wraith, Smoke and Mirrors, you don't need that. You keep Call of the Wild, keep Earthblood, get Pendulum to break through the Skeleton Spears and Halberds and things like that. And you got the Glade Riders, you have the Wild Riders. Great Stag Knights, honestly, I was a little bit underwhelmed with their performance here, so probably going for some sort of a Zote, you know, rush on the flanks could be pretty good, because this is a lot of cav for them to deal with. Any Nekar Horseman, Skeleton Horseman, you know, archers are going to get crumped. You will win the front line most likely, and then they have to pull resources from the back, and that's when Wild Riders can cycle charge and the Zotes can do some work. Like, this is also a very viable build, so it's really cool to have these options. Anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this one. We'll be back with more content soon, and you guys take care and stay safe in this accursed year. Cheers.